Here we go. Hey, everyone. Welcome to SVT time. It is, I almost said it's Thursday. We haven't done an SVT time on Thursday in a while, but it's Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday after Memorial Day. Welcome, everyone. This is episode 37 of SVT time. I'm Dino. Dom's joining us as well. And today, our very special guest is Mr. Conrad Korsch. Conrad, did I pronounce your last name right there? Korsch, correct?
Korsch. Yeah, sounds like Korsch.
Korsch. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
I know.
We're currently active with COVID 2.0.
Oh, man.
I was up 2 days ago. Yeah.
Dude.
Scratchy in the throat.
So, yeah, man, I know we were shooting emails back and forth this morning about it, but yeah. So we know you're in New York City, right?
Yes.
Right in Manhattan.
Right near Union Square in Manhattan.
Nice.
Yes.
And you just found out a couple of days ago, or did you just find out today that?
No, Sunday morning. I took a test. I was starting to feel symptoms Saturday night, and then I actually have to take a test every morning to be compliant with the Broadway show that I'm currently playing, and I have to send in the result. And so I woke up really early, and I took the test, and the rapid test said positive. And then the next step is you then have to go get the PCR test to confirm it. I came back positive, and then I had like 2 hours to scramble to cover the next week of my shows.
Right.
Because I'm supposed to be playing a matinee at 2:00. So yeah, I had it in March 2020 also, and it was this. I was much worse then, and scarier because every day it's like, go to the hospital. Don't go to the hospital. Go to the hospital if you can't breathe, and we'll put you on a ventilator, and you'll never come off. Do this, do that, and then I thought. I waited it out, but his symptoms were much more severe, fever for like a week, and I wouldn't have been able to speak at this volume level because of the immune thing and all that. And then I just thought, like, I was sort of in denial at the time, like maybe it's a cold. And I'm not going to go sit in the emergency room for 12 hours and then come home. Like I walked in with a cold and I come home with the flu, pneumonia, and COVID.
Right.
And herpes. So,
wow.
If it was a good visit, but yeah. So I did the antibody test 3 months later, confirmed it, and then I got my 2 vaccines and booster shot. But there's all kinds of breakthroughs and variants.
Yeah. I was just gonna say. So you have to test every morning and send the results in. Just a home test, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they provide. This is for Broadway. It's like the Broadway League, and it's like a scaled kind of a thing. Like depending on how many active cases have been reported among the employees at the theater that week, it's different. So if there's like 0, then I think you test twice a week, and if it's up to 5, you test 3 times a week, and if it's 5 or more that have been diagnosed as positive in the past however much time, then you have to test daily for like 2 weeks. So we were at that point anyway, so it was kind of ramping up. I had gotten an email like, great news, we're down to twice a week. And then like the next day it was like, okay, 3 times a week. And then the next day like five times a week. And now here I am. So
wow.
Yeah, they have a whole just like structured thing about how to provide the tests and everything.
Well, first of all, thank you for joining us, and more so, thank you for joining us. Just I had it 4 weeks ago, and there was one day I was just like, dude, I can't even get off the couch. This is so miserable. So, given your
with the vaccine, I assume.
Yes, well, I had the J&J, so I'm technically but I've also been boosted too. So
yeah. It was a lot of the symptoms are the same, except it was like way more extreme 2 years ago, and also mentally because every day something different. There's change, the guidance and your. But hey, it gave us extra time to hang out.
Yeah, right. You know, it's so funny because I know we were talking about this before we went live. You know, so I'm going to see a show the end of this month here in Boston, and they sent us all the requirements. Like we have to be fully vaxxed.
Mm-hmm.
We have to wear, and that doesn't include boosted, but we have to be fully vaxxed and we have to wear a mask for the show. Which I didn't question it, but I'm kind of like, you know, with obviously I thought cases were going down here in Mass, but my daughter just informed me. She goes, "No, Dad, cases are actually going back up again, so that's probably why they're doing it." But I was like, "Wait a second! I can go to Fenway Park and sit in the middle of a Red Sox game with, you know, with 32,000 of my closest friends, and you know, and they're not, and then like basically sporting events and concerts,
outdoor maybe? Is it like open air?
but even indoor concerts, they're not requiring vax cards.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
it's kind of inconsistent. And then there's a lot of pushback, obviously, as there's been anyway. Like the restaurant thing here, they don't check vax cards anymore. At least I haven't noticed anyone checking that stuff on going in and out. Nobody wears a mask there. But it used to be that like you have to walk in with a mask, show your vaccination card, and then you do, and then you go sit down. Everybody takes their mask off because now they're eating.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty hard to,
you
know, contain it.
Well, I hope you feel better and get through it pretty unscathed, as they say.
Yeah, thanks.
You get back to work, you know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's.
I found that, you know, the COVID thing has obviously opened up all kinds of different work angles too.
Yeah.
The home studio thing, if people didn't have it together, a lot of people got it together. And I've gotten more busy with that stuff, but also like, you know, like now one of my substitutes at my Broadway show has a week of work because I've come, and I've been actually this past 2 seasons I've been the second. I think I'm the second on the list as the COVID sub for Saturday Night Live. So that's been cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I still get paid because I have to learn and prepare all the music every week. And because I don't know until like Saturday morning at like 11 a.m. if they're going to need me, and I need to hold the day open and stuff. And like I'll get sent the music from Lenny Pickett like Wednesday or something, let's say. And it's a lot to get under your fingers. A lot of that. It's basically the Tower Power type music, only like A flat. You know?
Yeah. So you're going to do that every week, not knowing if
you're every week. Well, James is Genius, who I'm sure you know has the chair, right? And then I think there's another guy who's next, and so he's probably on it every week. But if James has to go out of town and the other guy's going to play the show, then I get bumped up to where like I'm that guy. So, and that's fine. You know, you gotta get it happens like once a month or something like that.
Yeah.
It would probably be like if it was like every week. I mean, I'd be grateful for it, and it's great practice. But you know, I don't know. I'm kind of like, what are the odds of me actually having to play the show? But damn it, I better prepare this stuff because I don't have to sight read that. Yeah, it's great. It's like I even said to Lenny, it's like playing etudes because, like, what is hip is an etude, right? But it's an E at least. And then Lenny, coming out of that lineage, he like writes that type of stuff for the bass. Only he'll write in like horn keys. Yeah. So it's like, can I get an open string, please?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. No open string.
That's amazing though. Think about all the bassists in the world, or all the bassists, even if you narrowed it down to New York City, and then like to be second on that list is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I do feel the first year that James took over, I was doing it a lot more. And I managed to actually play the show once.
Nice.
He had a full schedule from, you know, probably when he got hired, he probably already had a lot of touring commitments for the next year. So there was a lot of stuff he couldn't make. And then Tim LaFave would go in first, and then I was next. And Tim was busy with Wayne Krantz. So between the two of them, I ended up doing a lot of the pre-record stuff that they used to do on Fridays, like at Right Track Studios. But, you know, between the two of them, one of them usually managed to make it back in time to actually play the show. But then there was one time where they they didn't, so I got to play it. I think it was Billy Bob Thornton,
Oh, nice.
Creed.
Creed.
And now even those pre-records, like that's all home studio stuff now too. So that kind of like one part of work dries up and creates opportunity in another side of it.
You're gonna have to text me if you're doing the show. Just, hey, dude, I'm on SNL tonight.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Seriously.
Yeah. That's like, I post about like 5 things a year on Facebook. I would say that's a post worthy.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll have to share this later. I didn't pull it together to post. I wasn't even sure like how I was going to feel today, so I didn't want to put out a thing. Sure. But I know that you can stream it after, right? So.
Yes. Yeah. You'll be able to stream this after.
Put the link if I decide that I don't look too douchey. Which I'm not in the favor of posting at this point. So
yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, let's talk about your background a little bit. So were you born and raised in Philly?
Yeah.
And so obviously, how long have you been in New York now?
It'll be 28 years on July 19th.
Wow.
A few dates that I remember. Yeah.
Wow, man. So, I mean, obviously as musicians, especially sidemen and studio guys, and I moved to LA when I went not right out of high school, but there's basically 3 cities that guys move to: LA, New York, Nashville. You being from Philly, what's that?
Maybe Chicago.
Maybe Chicago. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other cities too.
Yeah.
And you being from Philly, obviously, the obvious choice would be, I'm going to move up. By the way, what is it with Philly? So many great bass players have come out of Philadelphia. Like,
I know. It's I don't know, Stanley Clark, right? Christian McBride. I went to the same music school. There's this music school called Settlement Music School, which is like you do your high school, and then after school there's this music school, and they have like ensembles and a jazz group and playing music and private lessons and stuff. But there's a few branches in town. Christian went in the branch downtown, and I was more like Northeast Philly where I grew up. But he was already like out of Philly by the time I was even doing any of the ensembles. So he was like 17 years old, I think, playing with Joe Henderson in New York. But some other guys that I know from that time, like Eric Lewis, a great piano player, his name's Elu. I was supposed to play this weekend with him in Philly, and I had to bail because of the COVID thing, unfortunately. He's a monster. Like, you should look him up. And there's a handful of great, like Joey DiFrancesco.
Yep.
Was there at the same time. And
wow.
A lot of guys. But I remember I started on piano, and I was taking like classical piano lessons at Settlement, and then I wanted to join the jazz band, and they didn't need a piano player, but they needed a bass player. And I was like an electric bass owner, but I could read bass clef and stuff from piano. So I kind of jumped in, and the band leader was a sax player, and he taught me how to like walk bass lines by showing me on the left hand of the piano, because that's what I could relate to more. So it was this really roundabout way of how I sort of came to playing jazz bass. And then like a week later, there was a master class at the downtown branch, and they put all the branches together, and it was like Eric Lewis and Orrin Evans and these guys, and Clark Terry was doing the master class.
Okay.
And I had to like play in this jazz group. It was like so over my head, But I got my butt kicked. I learned a lot, and I'm still with some of those guys.
That's
you still play piano a good bunch?
I wouldn't call myself a piano player. Like in New York, like there's so many great players. I mean, I use it as a tool for composing and recording. If I'm like composing, producing stuff at home, I could take my time and make mistakes and then redo it and stuff. But I would never put myself out there as a piano player, like for hire. There's too many. That's like kind of same with guitar. I never took guitar lessons. If I'm at home and I can punch in and like do my thing, then I do. I played guitar on like 4 records that I produced, painstakingly, but there's no way I would be like, hire me on guitar.
Yeah. You do a lot of home. Obviously, with COVID and everything, you've been doing a lot of home production. But even prior to COVID and now, do you still do a lot of home production?
Yeah, I do. Besides the obvious, like playing bass tracks,
Right.
Right. Yeah, I take on like a project at a time, because it's very time consuming, and I don't want to spread myself too thin. And like now, for example, I'm playing. There's 8 shows a week on Broadway. I don't always play all 8 because I usually take off, any amount. But if I'm taking off, it means I'm usually doing something else. So there's minimum 8 gigs. Actually, my weekends right now are every weekend minimum 7 gigs and as many as 10, because I have 5 shows, Friday night, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And then I do a late night jazz gig Friday and Saturday. And I sometimes do a gospel gig Sunday morning, and sometimes a synagogue gig Friday before the Friday show,
Nice.
and usually rehearsal Friday afternoon. So I think that adds up to like maximum 10. So it's crazy, but the thing is, it's all like fun, good stuff. So I don't really want to cut stuff loose. And then I'll take off the show to go play a jazz gig that pays like hundreds of dollars less, but because I want to keep that happening.
Yeah.
I'll give my subs a chance to play. But anyway, as far as the production thing, I did 2 of my own records as a singer-songwriter. The first one was like as a creative outlet, and also to kind of cut my teeth doing that and hone my skills. And then after that, I co-wrote and produced an EP with a girl named Emily Kinney. She was like one of the stars of The Walking Dead TV. And then it just kept rolling. Then I did another album of my own. Then I did another album that I co-wrote and produced with another girl. And now I am working with another artist that I started working with during COVID. It was like I was hired to just sort of be the bass player in the band to help him work up these tunes that he wanted to sort of just develop. And then like next thing you know, I was musical directing and then producing the record. And in the past like 15 months, we've now recorded 2 10-song albums, a 5-song EP, and a 1 track.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm mixing now. I've been mixing for the last like 16 songs. So that's another thing for like it's newer. I mean, I've mixed almost every one of the records that I've produced, except for my first one, which I kind of co-mix. But I don't feel like I'm still learning with the mixing. I always get it to where I want it to be, absolutely. But like the process, it's like the thing with the guitar and the piano playing. I'll get it done, but it can be painstaking. Whereas the bass is like, and and that's I just play that riff on everything. That's my thing. I heard about that.
Well, it's funny because you go into situations like that, and I know we've all been there. It's the bass is so, because we're all bassists, it's so second nature that you really don't put as much. Well, at least I shouldn't speak for you guys, but it's kind of like I don't want to say I don't put as much thought into it because I'm not worried about it. I know when it comes time to play the part, this is going to be second nature. But when it comes time to okay, I got to play this guitar part, or I'm going to play an organ part, and like you'll sit down and meticulously like take yourself out of it to the point.
I ended up playing bass almost like last on a lot of this stuff too, and I would program the drums, and then I would send them off to a drummer to like replace them, but do his own thing. But and then as a result, it was like all like parts and stuff because they're like singer-songwriter records. Because all the hooks and these like intricate parts were on the other instruments, and so the bass was just like dumb bass most of the time at the end. And then there were a couple, like maybe 1 or 2 on my second record where I like made a point of like I'm gonna write a song that like has a bass line that jumps out and stands out because this is like stupid that it's my main instrument. You barely even notice it on the records. Well, I've done a lot of another thing I've done. I'm remembering now is a bunch of library music for like cable TV stuff. There's a company here in town that took me on as a composer, and that was cool. I used to do a lot of that on the road.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 90-second things, or
Yeah.
60 seconds, or 30 seconds, and there'd be a project like we need whatever hip hop this or that for VH1, or we want this type of emotion or this type of a thing for this type of show.
Sure.
And then I would sometimes we'll have like 3-4 days off sitting somewhere, and I'll pull one of my basses from my guy, and I'll borrow a couple guitars from the other guys. I have all these great instruments at my disposal. And then I'd sit in my hotel room and like write all this stuff and compose it and produce it and play it, mix that. I would travel with like little portable setup. And I ended up, by the end of it, I've got probably like 400 or 500 tracks in there. Now they just sort of in the thing, and they just keep getting recycled. And every quarter I get a little bump from BMI. Helps.
Yeah.
It's not like retirement money, and then I see the names of the shows, and it's like all these shows like Pawn Stars and Northwoods Law, and it's not like Classic Cars, all these shows that I've like heard of but have never watched. But the funny thing is, of all of these, the one that I've made the most money on and it gets used the most is this thing that they call Heartbeats, and it's a djembe. I have sitting in the corner. It's like me hitting a djembe, and I lifted it from my first record on this song, I'm Leaving, where I hit it and it just goes boom, boom, boom. But I think it's like super useful probably for like Animal Planet when like the leopard is talking.
Right.
Sometimes they'll use it for like a minute, and like, as you know, the longer the more time they use it, the more you get paid. And every month it's like, really?
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's what's making up half of my BMI check. All right. Glad I included that.
Similar boat here, man. And it's funny, my wife says anything, we were talking like bass comes easy, everything else you kind of got to think a little bit harder on. There's like a consistent arc that I follow where it's like, oh, I'm incredible, this is great, and then you finally dig into it and it's like, oh my gosh, oh, why am I doing this? Rethink my life. I am God, and then it's done.
Yeah, but that's good because it's that feeling that makes you work and
work and learn. And
I think as artists, I think we all go through that ebb and flow where it's like, oh man, I'm on top of the world, and oh man, I suck. Oh man, oh man, I'm back. I think we all go through that at some point. At some point through our entire lives, I should say.
Well, and there's the artist thing, which is like, embrace your quirks and shortcomings and this and that. And then there's the like, I'm a like studio musician or sideman thing where you're expected to just be a chameleon and tackle anything too. And some people just are like not even interested in that. They'd rather have a day job and then go play like avant-garde, tenor penny whistle.
Yeah. No, it's a very true thing. Like, and I tell people, people ask, well, how do you get into it? How did you make a living at it? It's like, well, it's in some cases I was lucky that I was able to go work for a manufacturer, but I still perform and I still play. So I still consider myself. But I was like, you know what, man, even if I was driving a tractor trailer, which I used to do, I was a truck driver for years, I would probably still be out playing on Fridays and Saturdays.
Well, no, you'd be driving a truck for like a big world tour. Elton John or something.
That's probably true too. But then I wouldn't be home enough to do, to play music with my buddies Fridays and Saturdays.
No, I always respected musicians that didn't want to compromise their musical ideals. Like for me, it was never any question. Like the only other jobs I've ever done were like mowing lawns and, flipping, making cheesesteaks and washing dishes. And then I started teaching lessons and playing cover gigs in a cover band. And then it started picking up and playing jazz gigs in Philly and stuff. I used to play every weekend with this Jimmy Bruno, another legend. But I totally respect people that are like, I don't want to play weddings and bar mitzvahs and Broadway and all this stuff. Like, I want to do my music. It's my soul. I'd rather go do temp work or,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah. So we all know you double between electric and upright.
Mm-hmm.
So back when you were in Philly, I'm assuming you started as an electric player and then picked up upright, or was it the other way around?
It's
yeah, kind of.
But I mean, technically, when I started, I'll try and make this fast. When I started high school, I started studying piano when I was like 6, like everybody, and you practice for 10 minutes because your mom makes you, and then you go ride your skateboard, play stick on the street, right? So I did that for like 10 years. But I studied a lot of music theory along that time, and I did do some recitals. I got pretty good, but like not like someone that you would expect who was shedding for 10 years. And then I got to high school, and they said, you can take a musical instrument for free. So I said, great, teach me piano, save my parents the money. Well, we don't teach piano. That's an orchestra instrument. Okay, how about guitar? All right. Well, the guitar is not an orchestra instrument either, but we teach bass. And I'm like, what's bass? I'm like,
guitar.
Yeah, I weighed like 90 pounds and whatever, and they explained it to me, and then they said, but and it was upright bass because that's an orchestra instrument. They said, if you take lessons on this, you'll be able to play electric bass. And I was playing like keyboards and some rock bands and stuff. I was kind of stuck behind the keyboards, and then I liked the idea of having the freedom of electric bass. So I started lessons with. I remember that summer I listened to the shit out of U2 Under a Blood Red Sky, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if you go back and listen to that, there's some cool bass lines on it. Like I, as a newbie, like I was able to connect and understand. Like New Year's Day, boo doo 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 doo, like a song where the bass carries it, and then like I think it was Gloria. It was called one of those has like a slap bass solo, if you can call it that. But a few things, and it got me like connecting to it and a little bit more excited about it. And U2, like that music back then was like the bomb, right? So next thing you know, I get an electric bass, then I'm playing this 2 weeks later, I'm in like 3 cover bands, and we're playing like U2 songs, and then they wanted to play Zeppelin, which is like the Bible for me, and then Who, and then it's like you graduate to Rush, like the thing, like if your high school cover band can play YYZ, you arrive. But in the meantime, so basically I started first day of school. I go, it's high school, it's a new school, upright bass, town I mean, then they hand me the bow, and I'm like, I didn't even know you could play it with the bow, and I was kind of mortified because I was like, I don't want to be the little guy with the song away, and I took lessons for a few months and then quit once after I got my electric bass. But it got me started, showed me where the notes were. Turns out I learned later that the teacher that I was studying with, Eligio Rossi, I believe was his name, was Stanley Clarke's teacher.
Wow.
So,
right?
Opportunity fail, right? I was cool. And the nuns were like, every day they would write me like, you have to join the orchestra. You're taking lessons. It's part of the thing. I was like, I'm not joining no stinking orchestra on that instrument. I'm going to get my ass kicked. Like, that's how I felt, like, just as an insecure, skinny little kid. But in hindsight, I mean, I regret that. Look at like guys like Christian who did the orchestra thing and all through high school and played in all state and all. Look at how they have it now. So I eventually, when it came time for college, it was like, do you audition on classical piano or jazz bass? There was no like rock, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I decided to roll with bass, having had a little bit of experience at that point playing in the Settlement Music School jazz band.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get through the upright thing quickly. So
no.
So by the end of my first year of college, my teacher had essentially scared me into taking up upright again, because he was great at getting inside of my head. So he'd be like, well, when you start playing upright and next year on your upright lessons, I'm going, why do you keep saying upright? I resisted, and he said, because what do you you're in the jazz bass program, you're going to graduate in 3 years and you don't even play the instrument that is like geared towards what you're studying, And what do you think? You're going to walk around with your degree and say, like, hire me? No, you're going to be out on the streets competing with me and everyone else who plays both instruments. So just for sheer work, if you want to double your work options, you better reconsider that. And I did. And then something clicked, man. And I was just like, I fell in love with it. And I was like, that one summer between freshman and sophomore year, I was shedding like 12 hours a day. You know, it was crazy. That and then electric too. And I think I bought like a 6-string electric because like that was the thing back then. But it was that real like awakening period for me. And I came back to school after 3 months. It was like a whole different ball game. And I never really looked back as far as the upright goes. But I had a lot of making up for lost time to do with the bow, everything.
Now, given today where you're at today, how much of your work would you say is divided between upright and electric? 50-50, 70-30?
I just to like average it, I would say 50-50. You know, like until Beetlejuice, which is my show, just reopened like 2 months ago. For the last 6 months, I was playing 5 steady jazz gigs per week, all on upright. So the only electric bass I was playing was like for this guy that I'm producing musical directing. But like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's 4. There was another one Sunday too. Yeah, 5 nights a week and just banging away on the upright. And it was great, you know. But if you asked me then, I would be like, oh, I'm playing 10% electric bass. But really, in the big picture, it is 50-50. And I will say one thing that I can be proud of or whatever is that I feel like I'm a real equal doubler. It's not like, oh, that's an upright guy, but he plays Fender.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Or like he's an electric guy, but yeah, if you need him to play some upright on something, like the biggest compliment that I get in my mind is like if I play with some upright bass with people for some period of time and then I end up on a gig with them where I'm playing electric bass and they go, wow, I had no idea you even played electric, and vice versa. So you don't sound like a guy that plays one that's sort of like noodling around on the other one.
That is a huge compliment because they are 2 different disciplines.
Yeah, and 2 different approaches.
Yeah.
Here and here and here.
Yeah.
It's like finding out that you hear a band and you're like, yeah, that was definitely a guitarist that they just had. He was the only guy that owned a bass in the band or something like that.
Yeah, right.
You know, that kind of thing.
That's how a lot of people became bass players. That's kind of what happened to me at the Settlement Music School band, right? I went to put on piano, but didn't McCartney like start that way? And he got like
but he's like,
you play bass.
Yeah, he made it his own thing though.
No,
it made it the thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say so, and for everybody that's watching along, please post your questions here too, because we will read them and answer them. But being the old man that I am, I got to do this now.
Yeah.
I should just I'm just going to post this here. I'll show it. So, Rich is asking. First, he says, "Feel better, Conrad. Thanks for doing this." What show are you doing now, and is it common to double or even triple 4, 5, 6 string and 4, 5 upright on Broadway gigs?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I answered the show thing, Beetlejuice, right?
Yep.
Thank you for the well wishes. And so the way doubling works is it's a union contract, which defines that, right? So first of all, let me clarify that a double implies that it pays double. It does not. The first double pays, I think, 12.5%. And then every double after that is, I think, half of that. So like 6.25% or something like that. So you actually don't say I'm tripling or I'm quadrupling. In this case, because of the way the contract is written, you would say I have 2 doubles or 3 doubles, right? And that first one is X amount, second. And 4-string and 5-string, unfortunately, is not a double. You know, if I played 10 4-string basses and 10 5-string basses, I'm getting single pay. However, if one of those basses is fretless, that is a double.
Interesting.
Fretless bass is definitely a double. So, and upright bass is a double. So on Beetlejuice, I play upright and a fretted 4-string bass. And I
Okay.
usually hit shot on some stuff. If they were to add any fretless bass, then I would have 2 doubles. So currently I have 1 double. And there are situations where I was just talking about this in the pit the other day, and I'm not sure exactly, but like if the orchestrator specifically requests a certain instrument, like let's say he says, I want you to play like a Hofner Beatle bass on this one song, then I believe that would count as a double if it's like that specific. I used to sell that Spider-Man, the ill-fated Spider-Man, for Richard Hammond, who's a great bass player and a great friend of mine. He's currently doing Hamilton. And he had all kinds of doubles, and I was like, how is that? And I think it came down to, if you remember, like Bono and The Edge did the music. So they're coming out of like a production head space where it's like, I want this axe with the flat wounds, and then I want the same axe but not with flat wounds, and then so it was so specific. So he had like a hollow body and a fretless and an upright, and I think then a 4-string and a 5-string, and yes, but great questions.
That now does, and I'll get to this. This is kind of like a 2-part question, but is it the union that decides that, or is it through like a collective bargaining between the union and the production? How does that work?
There's a collective bargaining agreement between the like Broadway League, I guess, or the producers, and the union. But the union doesn't say, Conrad, I want you to go play upright bass on this and double and all that. So what it comes down to is the show's orchestrator, musical director, conductor, producers, and that's the meeting of the minds there, and like the budget, the money people. So I'm sure that it comes up all the time where they're like, oh, we're like just over what we thought. What can we knock off? Like, do we really have to have flugelhorn on that one song? Remember, it's not just bass. There's not a lot of bass doubles, but like guitarists will play like, they'll play like an arch top, and then a nylon string, and then a steel string acoustic, and then an electric guitar. Leads have all kinds of doubles, flute, clarinet, bassoon, saxophones.
I would imagine percussionists as well. Does that fall into that
category? Yeah, the guy at Beetlejuice is making a mint. Yeah, but he's amazing. He has a whole room to himself, and it's like running a marathon, like back and forth. He has like monitors everywhere you look to look at the conductor, because he's constantly turning around, and his the headphone extension. So temps take up a lot of space, right? And then you go over here, and there's a xylophone and a marimba and all the different things.
Wow.
He kills it. It's great.
That's amazing.
Wow. And you
sorry?
When you're carrying a bunch of different instruments to shows, especially in New York City, do you still use cartage? Is that still a thing? What's your approach to it?
Cartage is much less of a thing, I think. Maybe for certain drummers, like Sean Pelton, who's on 8,000 jobs a day and probably still has all his stuff at cartage anyway, that's been there for years. But like what changed, I was never like a big cartage guy. I had a car for a long time. I haven't had a car now for a long time, but that did a lot of it. And around the time I got rid of the car, a lot of places, venues started supplying backline, because that was the big thing, was like getting that 410 cabinet in there, and drummers had to bring drum sets, and even like the Bitter End on Bleecker Street, famous club that has like a house kit, and there's a house cabinet and a head and all that. With Uber and everything, you can go, oh, well, I need an amp and an upright, so I have to do Uber XL. Like, you can kind of dial it in, and in a lot of cases, if it's like a decent professional gig, you can get reimbursed for that. So instead of like, pay this company $150 to bring my stuff, it's like, can I just flip you my like $53 Uber XL receipt to reimburse me? And in the case of Broadway shows too, everybody leaves everything there.
Okay.
It's discouraged to even take it away, because like front of house, when you have subs in and stuff, already it's going to sound a little different anyway. So at the very least, play the same instruments, use the same signal chain.
Yeah.
I don't have an amp at the show. I'm just on a DI. You know, there's a lot of concerns with like live sound, trying to keep it as tucked in as possible, and orchestra pit and open mics and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I leave an upright there. I leave like an old K. I leave a Lakeland 4-string Joe Osborne bass in the hip shop, and a bow, like a kind of a cheap bow, and some rosin and stuff. The guitar players, they have heads, and then they have like amp simulators or like those load things, however that stuff works.
Yeah.
I know like string players, they take their instruments with them. That's a different story. You know, you're putting a mic in front of the cello or violin, but yeah. Thank God we leave our stuff.
Yeah, right. You know, and that's just it. Unless you've actually gigged or attempted to gig in New York City, it is a whole different bunch of, I don't want to say obstacles, but parameters that you have to work in. You can't drive up to the club and park in the parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, like the thing with these 5 gigs a week that I was doing, I mean, that was great for my chops and musically. And I was playing like duo with Mark Whitfield on one night, and then duo with upright bass and sax with like, you know, Tim Reese from the Stones or Craig Haney, guys like all these great gigs, all these great people. But it's like, all right, I got to get there. And in some cases, I would just walk because I don't know, I'm trying to avoid the subway these days. There's COVID, and also the subway is banged up these days in New York.
Really?
Are you listening, Mayor? It's dangerous, man. I don't want to be anywhere near it. And then my hands full with an upright bass, it's like I'm pretty defenseless. And also a big target. Like, hey, that's with me.
Yeah.
Look at this guy with the canoe.
Yeah. So then what happens is like, you know, I'm taking an Uber XL each way. So there goes $50. And like, you know, these gigs, they're jazz gigs in New York City, you know.
Yeah.
You're barely cracking 3 figures, you know, and then Uber. So if it was like 40 degrees or above in the winter, I would just walk it. It might be like, I'm pretty central now, so generally they were like 20, 25-minute walks. I have a wheel on my bass, that's a New York thing. I don't know if that's common.
No, I've got one on mine too. Abs, I don't go anywhere.
Yeah, so this is the wheel.
Yep.
I've literally had flats. I've gotten flats on this.
They make them with rubber foam now, so that you don't have to put air in them, right?
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've got. No, mine still has air, but they do make them with just the rubber foam. Yeah.
Great. Now I got to buy something else.
There you go.
But the thing about this is the post comes out. Like you can change post because I have 3 different bases with 3 different post sizes. So I thought I needed 3 wheels, but you only need 1 wheel, and you can change the post with it.
Oh, see that I didn't know.
Yeah, so that's handy.
Right.
Yeah, like once you get it going, you know, you just
run people over.
Yeah, like use it to make phone calls. Then I go, idiots are like, I bet you wish you played the flute.
I was gonna say every time, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You should say not for 1 second.
You know,
I wouldn't be on my way to this gig if I did.
It's fun. I don't know if you get this or not, but like I'll do a duo gig, just like an acoustic pop duo with the singer-songwriter that I play with. And I don't know how many times, this just shows you the music education in the country, but I don't know how many times people say, is that a cello? Or the one time we were walking into a gig one night, I looked at it, I says, April, I'll bet you a drink that somebody's going to call this an oboe. And there's no way somebody's going to confuse an upright bass with an sure shit.
Oh my God.
Hey, is that an oboe?
Yeah. Are you implying that I blow? I usually just ignore it, but unless it's like a parent telling their kid, like, Mommy, what's that? And it's like, why, that's a cello. And I'm like, actually, can I correct both of you since we're educating them?
Yeah.
But otherwise, the other one is, I don't know where this came. What do you got in there? A dead body?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I usually go, not yet.
Got a bag of lime.
Well, it sounds like with like all the shows you're doing and the fact with the Broadway stuff, you have to keep your gear there. It's like you have to have an arsenal of bases.
Yeah.
To
Very
just
observant.
outfit all that, to keep all
Yeah.
the gigs.
No, you're
It's
right.
such a great
Yeah.
excuse, though. I'm thinking like, okay, I need more excuses for my wife to buy bases.
Yeah, right.
No,
I know.
honey, I gotta
sold a lot
have
of
these
stuff.
5 other gigs.
I sold a lot of stuff when quarantine came, because it was like everyone's like, it's the end of the world. There's never going to be a music industry again.
Yeah.
But I still have like way too much. But yeah, for my first 5 years in New York, I had just one upright bass, and then I got this Broadway show. The only other show I've done full time, the only other show I was available to do full time, it was called Swing, and I was on stage. So I had to buy another bass to leave there. So I bought my first K. Did that. The show closed. Next thing you know, I'm doing the Rod Stewart tour and upright bass. So I wanted something where I could just leave that, because our gear would just go to a warehouse in LA or London or something, and then I would leave one home. And then I think another, so I only had my like nice bass at home, which I'm running around playing these little jazz gigs, and it was getting beat up and getting cracks and all that kind of stuff. So I got my hands on another K. So that's kind of my scene now. 1K at the show, my like nice bass, which I use to go recording studio or, certain higher end things. And then my K, which I just run around town and just destroy everywhere.
Yeah. That's my main bass is a K, and it's all plywood, so
yeah, mine too.
You don't have to. Yeah, that's just it. It's a workhorse, and it's not like it's a like a real expensive bass, but not a stupidly expensive bass.
Yeah. And it's like aesthetic stuff now that I used to repair. Like I don't even unless it's like functional,
right.
Seam or something, like the bridge gets knocked over, But if it's like, oh, this chunk came out of here, put like epoxy crap in there and I'll just paint it brown afterwards.
Elmer's wood fill.
yeah. It's like, basically.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to sweat it anymore.
Yeah. So, I've got so many questions. I'm going to start with.
I have 4 more days of quarantine, so.
I was going to say. We're
going
to talk tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Somebody that a young kid that wants to move to New York and be a bass player in New York City, what advice would you give them?
Oh my. Bass specific?
Well, I mean, just because this is a bass show, and I'm assuming most people of them are watching bass play, but musicians in general, like.
Yeah. Well, okay. Bass specific, I would say, like what my teacher scared me into doing. Double, if you can. If you can pull it together on upright and electric. If you can play fretless too, why not? I mean, honestly, there's not a ton of fretless work, but there are some guys that have sort of made that their thing.
Yep.
And as a result, they end up getting a lot of the calls for that or whatever. But yeah, upright and electric, having those two is a big thing. And then the other thing that people don't realize, it was one of the things that first kind of slapped me in the face, which is more of a general thing, is learn as much repertoire as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. People up here, if they're not waiting for you to go into your backpack and pull out your real books and figure out which real book X song is. People are like, let's do this. Or they won't even call the song. They'll just start playing it.
Mm-hmm.
They might hold up. You do that stuff like the PC. Do you do flats up or flats down?
Most of the guys I wear, everything is up.
Everything is up.
Yeah, everything is up.
How do you know?
That's just it.
Really, it was sharps up, right? So that's D major, right?
Yeah.
But it also means something else in London, but that's another story. So, and then you get to New York and it's flats are up and sharps are down. But no one tells you that. They're not like you're unpacking. They're like, by the way, where'd you grow up? Just want you to know.
Just in case.
This was on the bandstand on what they would call society gigs, or and then club days and stuff. But society gigs were really specific, where you play these play standard after standard after standard, and like one chorus, and then maybe there'd be a solo for 16 bars, and then play the bridge out, and then it's the next song, and they don't even call the song. It's just one of the horn players puts his fingers, you know, and you're like, okay, we're going to that key, and then they start playing the melody, and you're expected to know the song. But yeah, it's flats up here, and I figured that out the hard way. You know? And it always perplexed me. Why is that? I just thought that's just one more way from New York to, like, you know, mess with people. And, but actually, when I used to ask every like old head kind of horn player from that area, and a lot of people never even knew. And then somebody said something that made sense to me, and it was that because when you're playing with horns, they prefer to play in flat keys, so most of the songs are in flat keys, and it's easier to see how many fingers you're holding up if they're going up than it is to go, you know, like A flat when you're trying to show a band sound. Sometimes it's a whole big band that you're like. True. So that made sense to me.
Yeah.
But obviously know your key signatures.
Yep.
People might not even tell you we're doing this in F. They might just go, all right, Days of Wine and Roses. Yeah. But in general, jazz repertoire, absolutely, you have to know. It's just never done, and there's thousands, right? Yep. But that applies to rock and roll, blues, funk, disco, R&B, and the beautiful thing about that is like learning those songs. Obviously, there's real books and stuff for the jazz stuff, but on all the other styles of music, you rarely find charts. So you have to kind of learn them from the recordings. Maybe you play along, and that helps your feel, right? Because you're now playing with that drummer, and you're playing with the bass player that played that, and it's like, how was that phrased? So it feeds your playing and musicianship in more than just being like prepared by knowing the repertoire.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest bit of advice, and don't be an asshole.
Well, that's always a given.
Just because I am doesn't mean you can be.
Yeah, you know, I tell Dino that every day.
Yeah, you know, that all the time.
But that really is that, you know, all the obvious things: show up on time, blah 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 blah. Maintain gear, you know, don't show up with 3 strings on the bass unless that's deemed cool. Which in some places it might be. But yeah, like the whole like personality aspect of like working well with others and being adaptable to work with them. It's not just about you, it's about the group and what that is.
And don't tell anybody you're a Red Sox fan.
That's sports, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I heard about that.
I'm assuming open jams are still, you know, obviously sitting in and getting your name out there.
Probably should have mentioned that. When I got to town, there was, you know, the internet was like not really happening at that time. I moved to 94, right? So there was this newspaper, you might have heard of the free newspaper that came out weekly called The Village Voice.
Yep.
And you'd also, that's where you'd find apartments, and you know, it would hit the newsstands at like 3 a.m. for Wednesday. You'd go grab one if you wanted to get a jump on finding an apartment, because by like 9 a.m. the next day, somebody already booked it.
Wow.
But they would list all the clubs and which were having jam sessions. And so like my thing, since I was trying to really be diversified and versatile, was like I'd go to like a blues jam at, you know, whatever place was having it back then, and then go to a jazz jam on the Upper West Side, and then go back downtown, and it would be like, you know, more like a rock thing at the bitter end from midnight to 2, and I'd go over to Smalls, which had just opened in the Village, and that jam session was 2 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Wow.
So I'd hang out there, you know, as late as possible, and it was BYOB. I'd just get a 6-pack and like sit there. And the thing, because at first I was like nervous to go sit in.
Sure.
And then it turned out that guy, Eric Lewis, who I was telling you about from Settlement Music School, he was hosting the jam there on Friday nights. And I went and sat in with him, and then he started hiring me for the house band, which is the best thing that you could hope that would happen.
Right.
But before that, what I would do is like lurk in the shadows, and any song that was called on a jam session that I didn't know, like if I was up on stage and they called that song, I didn't know it, write it down, and I would go home and learn it. That was my mission, because they don't say, hey, we're going to play blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anybody want to come up and play that song? No, you just kind of wait your turn, because there's 100 people in front of you, and you get up, and then they're like, all right, let's do this, and then you're like, oh shit.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That really is great advice. Just write the song down, go home and learn it.
Yeah, and no one has to know, because until people know who you are, which no one knew who I was just there like prepping as much as I could.
That's cool. I mean, that's just as invaluable as going to music school and learning the notes.
Yeah, I still do it. There's still songs that are called, especially because I'm not, I do jazz, I do like Latin, Brazilian kind of stuff. I do the Broadway thing. I'm doing rock and roll. I'm like it's all kinds of different stuff, right? So it's enough to just focus on one genre and try to maximize all the songs in that. But imagine spreading it thin like that. So you end up having this, which I felt happened with me, was like this very slow but wide kind of increase, as opposed to like, I am I'm going to play Brazilian music. That's all I want to do. And I'm going to learn all the repertoire. I'm going to get in the scene, go, but it's a narrower thing. So I prefer this. It's kind of like job security too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, how cool is that? You get to play so many genres of music. To me, that's fun in and of itself. Like, hey, doing a Latin tune or going from a Latin gig to a jazz gig to a rock gig. Speaking of rock gigs, how long were you on with Rod Stewart?
Almost 16 years. Wow. Yeah, you count like the first gig I did, which the very first gig with him was the Jay Leno show in October. October 2000. Wow. 2002.
Okay.
And then the last gig was like June of 2018 in Vegas. So that October would have been this 16 year from gig to gig. Yeah.
Was that the American Songbook that he was doing at that point in Vegas?
When I started. Yeah. No, that ended long time.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. We did that. That's how I got in. That was my in, was the upright bass.
Oh, okay.
The irony is that like I got the biggest rock gig in my life by playing the upright bass, which I had resisted because I wanted to play rock.
That's amazing.
I got in the door through that, and then for a year I was only like the bass player for that stuff, which there was a lot of it because it was like all the promo, Letterman, Today Show, Oprah, and then like we did a DVD and some like one-off events, and then the second album came out a year later and it was the same thing, and it was like, oh, this isn't just a lark, like we have to include this in the touring stuff from now on.
Okay.
So the issue was that Carmine, the great Carmine Rojas, who was Rod's bass player and musical director for like 16 years, you see a pattern here, didn't really play upright, but it, so that kind of made him not really the guy for the gig anymore, which it was tricky because, he's the MD, he'd been there forever. And then I think he was, the American Songbook stuff wasn't like hard hitting jazz,
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're playing an instrument that, as we started this conversation with, it's a different instrument.
Yeah.
And so he just didn't have that experience on that instrument, just the same way that I don't on the saxophone.
Sure.
And so it sort of became inevitable that I would take over because I am a real electric bass player and I could do both.
Yep.
And so I ended up he ended up doing 5 American Songbook records, and we included that repertoire in the touring for the next 2 years. But after like 2000, by 2007, he was already on to the next thing, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna get canned. But he kept me in the band, and we did like we would do an unplugged acoustic set in the middle of the show, and I play upright bass. I said, I still keep doing that. And then in 2017, I was promoted to be the musical director.
Okay.
I did that for a year. And then it was kind of like there's nothing left here. You know, there's nowhere else to go. And I just wasn't comfortable with kind of just plateauing and churning it out,
Sure.
you know, for on multiple levels.
Yeah.
You know, so it became through a series of realizations, time to go. You know,
Yeah.
but, you know, like I make less money now, right? But I'm home in New York, and I've been in New York for 28 years, but for like the better part of 16 of them, I spent more than half of the year on tour. That was an amazing, wonderful life experience to experience the world like that, but it takes its toll in other ways too, like relationships and, you know, it used to bum me out to turn down work in New York. Like I turned down a lot of Broadway shows. I turned down a lot of other tours with great, famous artists that would have been challenging and different opportunities because I had to commit to that. So this sort of frees me up to jump in and out of a lot more stuff. And
And that gives you more opportunities to say yes to more things too.
Yeah.
You know, no, I can imagine. And that's, you know, I know, you know, these guys in Nashville, they won't go on the road because they don't want to lose their work in Nashville.
Yeah.
Like, you know, once you're on the road, you have to start saying no to a lot of other things.
That for good reason. And that's why, you know, that's why it pays a lot too, you know. But then it pays a lot, but I mean, there's different things. Like we were paid according to when we worked, right? We weren't on like a retainer. So these days it's very rare. And so even though you make like a great salary, you're still only working 6 months a year, maybe.
Right.
So you kind of cut that salary in half if you're looking at it as a yearly salary. Yep. I never really looked at it that way because I'd come off the road on Thursday and Friday I'd be playing like with the Birdland Big Band, you know, and like subbing on a matinee on Saturday afternoon and playing a wedding that night. Like I would do that stuff on purpose just to keep it going, keep challenging myself to play different things. But and it's sort of built into the creative artist thing, or like the individual. Maybe it's an ego thing, or just sort of being your own business. But like you want to be the guy that's in Rod Stewart's band, right? You want to be that guy that has that gig, but you also want to be the guy that's doing that Broadway show and that just played on that album and it's playing at this gig downtown with all the hip guys, you know, like you kind of want to be the guy that's everywhere and you want to be seen on that TV thing, and you just can't do it. So at some point you make a decision. The cool thing about the Broadway thing is back to the union, you can take off up to 50% of the time and you're protected by the union that they can't fire you. So take a leave of absence. So I could take a tour now and go on for 6 months as long as the conductor would sign off on my leave of absence, and then I'd come back and I have a guaranteed gig. But the handful of shows I had to turn down during the time I was with Rod, where like there is a 1 month lock-in period. The first month, as you do previews and rehearsals, until a week after opening, you can't take off. It's just quality control and, you know, establishing the show.
Sure.
So that's fair, but it's like every one of my other shows that I was offered always fell in that 1 month period.
Wow.
Yeah.
How for people that, you know, I mean, I belong to the local here in Merrimack Valley. You belong to the New York local. How important is the musicians union today, do you think?
You know, there's always varying opinions on that.
Yeah.
You know,
I know that could be a double-edged question there, but
well, you know, I could tell you that from about 6 months after I moved to New York, I've been in the union and I've never missed one dues payment. I pay the whole year up front. It's a couple $100. You write a check. It's a tax write-off.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, you know, like there's the local magazine that goes out every month. And in the back, they list new and readmitted members. Right. So it's supposed to be like a way, like, welcome Conrad to the union, blah, blah, blah. Here's his phone number. He plays these instruments, but readmitted as well. And the names that pop up on that, I don't want to call people out, but it's like top cream of the crop of the music industry, and you see these things, and you're like, what? Like, what really says that, like, oh, you didn't want to pay your like $50 for 3 months because in that one quarter you didn't have a union gig, and it's like
Right.
just write the check every year. You know, I mean, they got to pay their mortgage at the local and all that. I mean, look,
right.
I have health insurance through the union because mainly because of Broadway. But you know, any union gig pays into that. I have a pension plan I've invested in since like 1999.
Right.
The pension plan is hanging on for dear life, unfortunately, but it exists and there is money there, and you know, they're trying. It's all we have, right? And they establish minimums, and they establish this thing with the doubles. Like, so at Beetlejuice, the orchestrator can't come up to me and go, "Hey, man, you want to keep your gig? We're going to add this, blah 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 blah," and you're going to do it. No, I'm going to say, okay, well, let's get this on the contract, and boom, 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 and protection there.
Yeah.
There's like royalties for reruns, like the SNL thing. Like I get paid for the COVID thing, and I get the rerun thing too because I'm on the contract. So that's great. I put the work in for the most part. But so then some people look at it like they're sort of gatekeepers in a way too. Like, you can't play on Broadway if you're not in the union. But it's like, again, write the check. The reason that your paycheck that you're going to get if you do play this show is as high as it is because the union has negotiated. They've gone on strike. So I'm a big proponent, or is that the right word, proponent? Endorsing the union. Because again, it's all we have, and you know, no one's perfect, and a lot of the people that work there are like musicians or former musicians or whatever. It's like it's not like everyone's coming out of the Wharton School of Business and like lining up the union hall to like be the next local 802 treasurer.
No, it's funny because like I said, I was a member of the local here in Merrimack Valley. I was a local when I was I remember joining the union when I was in LA working at Musicians Institute, and Joe Porcaro, the legendary drummer.
Sure.
I remember sitting in one of his classes and him saying, the total old school, like, I don't consider you a professional musician if you're not a member of the union. And at that point, it's like, oh, I gotta go join the union. Joe won't think I'm a professional musician if I don't join. And I did, and there's benefits to it. And
there's definitely benefits. I mean, I don't that's a bit subjective, that perspective, like different generations. Some people, they're like great jazz musicians that, unless they're hired for something that's a union thing, like a lot of the live work, unfortunately, is not union, but I would imagine like Lincoln Center, like the Winton Big Band. That is, but, some of the clubs might have signed on now, like Vanguard. I played the Blue Note a bunch of times. That's definitely not union. But, so it's sort of like goes gig to gig. But and it used to be like you look at it as an old guy thing, but that's changing. I'll tell you, like when I started Broadway in January '95, I was like the youngest guy on Broadway. I think at like 24 or 25, and I mean at 10 years old. Revealed too much about the age.
I was going to say,
rewind. Edit. Anyway, I just had a big birthday, Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yeah, 50 on 0505.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Congrats.
And 50, you just joined the 50 club.
Yeah, but we're going to delete this part anyway. Oh, live. Damn it.
I joined the 50
for the streaming thing.
Man, you know what? The 50
on demand.
50 is the new 30.
There's going to be a lot of demand. But yeah, what I was going to say is that at the time, I resist. I got my break on Broadway because my teacher, Vince Fay, who I love dearly and is a great friend. I'll get choked up if I start talking about it. Okay. But he had the chair at Grease, the one in the 90s with like Rosie O'Donnell and the girl from the Blue Lagoon. You know who I'm
Oh,
talking about. Brooke Shields, thank you.
yeah.
And so, and then I moved to town. He was like, "Hey, why don't you start subbing for me?" You know, and I was like, "I want to do Broadway now, like play jazz, and I want to like get in the touring rock scene." And he was like, "Listen, get your union card. You know, pick up your bass is your toolbox, right? You've acquired these skills, and in 4 years, come and do this. Sit in the pit, meet these other musicians. They're going to be doing other things. They'll start thinking of you for other stuff."
Yeah.
And then I did, and that opened up. Then I started subbing on another show, and then I got my own show, Swing, which suddenly now I'm the guy with the show. So like people who were established Broadway musicians were calling me for a gig, and I was on stage, and I got a bass player magazine blip. So I was like, it all made sense. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that people come out of Berkeley now and come to New York at age 22, like with a heart on to play Broadway.
Yep.
You know, like, because for them it's like, wow, this is a viable work resource.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of 22-year-old kids, guys, adults, signing up for the union and doing that kind of work. And they see it. When I moved to town, I started playing with a lot of like really, really old guys that were like, I used to play with like Glenn Miller and like these guys. And like in these big bands, these 80-year-old guys, and I'm 20 something, and they'd all say, "I don't know what you're moving to New York for now. I don't know how you think you're going to make a living. There's no more work." and because there was so much more work. This is before synthesizers.
Sure.
The jingle thing was happening.
No backing tracks for everything.
Yeah, silent movies. The union. Like I think the union went on strike when they added sound to movies because there were no more orchestras. I think every movie theater had an orchestra that would play for the movie, and it was like you're going to play the music instrument. So, and then you have look at what MP3s did and Napster and all that stuff. That killed a lot of the recording industry, or at least the profits of record labels. Let's put it that way. But I find myself now becoming like the old guy, saying like, I don't know, what, you're gonna go play at Rockwood Music Hall, pass the hat, and everything's a tip jar now. There's no money, and like, how do you think you're gonna make a living? But somehow people, they work it out. There's the library thing, and there's again though, I do think there's evidence of that in that you're seeing these 22-year-old kids lining up to play Broadway instead of trying to get gigs at the now closed as of last weekend 55 bar. Unfortunately.
Oh wow!
New York City, where Mike Stern played every Monday for 100 years.
Closed for good.
The night before it closed, I played a gig there. It's like
closed for good.
Wow. Yeah, they weren't able to claw their way back out of debt after the quarantine.
Oh, that's so sad.
Not every landlord gives their tenants a break.
Yeah.
And I think that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
I think you're a testament to, in terms of just advice in the music industry now, and just, it's ever evolving. It's never going to change in that sense, I feel like, but you have acquired so many differing skills that there's always a lane. And I think now the modern musician or artist or whatever has to just maybe wear more hats than they used to wear, but there's, like you're saying, there's still, if you can wear enough and make it work, there are avenues.
Thank you for recognizing that. And you're right. There's no replacing live music. And or what it feels like to record live musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not everything is going to be, even though like the samples and the virtual instruments and all that stuff are as amazing as they are. There's still, when you get different human beings with different personalities and approaches together, it's going to create a different kind of energy.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Got a good question in from Norman Sawyer. I just don't want to miss that
No. Let me show this. So, Conrad, what's the best lesson or thing you learned for bowing technique, which was never taught? You just picked it up by playing.
Which is never taught. Well, first of all, I did study with the bow eventually, right? But I don't think that's what he's saying outside of that.
Yeah. Other than being able to swat people away from you in the pit.
Yeah, right.
Get away from me.
Yeah, right. Or scratch my back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bow, man. That has been. I call it the humble stick.
Yeah.
That to me.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I did coin that. Like you feel
Gonna
like
use that.
good about all your stuff, right? And then it's like you pick up the bow, and then I start thinking so much about it, and so then I'm thinking less about this. And next thing you know, the intonation's going, and there's so much to it that and also that again. So playing electric and then playing upright. That's two instruments, and let's face it, the bow is like a third instrument.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on top of that, that instrument is mostly used in classical music. And back to the thing of like, don't call me to play piano in New York City or guitar, because there's too many guys. So like, yeah, I can read music. I can follow a conductor. I can play in tune. I play with the bow. I do that I've done it at the Tony Awards for a few years and like on Broadway shows and all this stuff. But am I gonna, when there's guys in town, like the guys that we know about in the Phil and at the opera, am I gonna be like, I'm a classical bassist? No, those guys did 4 to 8 years of studying and learning all the excerpts and playing that music. Just like they might be like, yeah, I can play pits, I can walk a bass line, I can play changes, but I'm not a jazz player. Yeah. But anyway, so all that to say, one thing, probably the thing that comes to my mind right away, and it did sort of come from a lesson, but it's almost like the antithesis of studying bow technique. Because good buddy of mine plays in the Met Opera. His name is Brendan Kane, and he's a great upright player. And he's like, he'll be that guy that's like, yeah, like I have a Fender, I get around on it too, and I could play jazz, but so I would go. I took like 3 lessons with him or something over the years, just to like, maybe it would be like right before I was going in to do the Tonys, and I wanted to sort of just make sure I hadn't picked up any more bad habits and stuff.
Sure.
And he would, he's sort of like, I say he's like a rock classical upright player, because his approach, like to me, when you're talking about classical music and the bow and all that, it suddenly everything becomes so precious, right? And he was like, we were talking about tremolo. And I'm going, man, like, if I got to keep like a low tremolo note going for a while, it just like my shoulder starts going, it just kills me, And then like, if sometimes the conductor's like, more, they want more volume, and I'm like leaning into it. I'm like, what do you do? I should just grab a book. And I'm thinking like, what am I doing wrong here? Why can't I get like more volume? And it's gonna sound like shit anyway. No rosin on the bow.
French bow, right?
So this is French. Yeah, when I was in swing, I got a couple German bows because I was playing 8 shows a week and I was getting bored of doing the thing. There were only a couple bow ones, so I was like, I'm gonna get a German bow and see if I could play this on German bow. And so I did that for 6 months, but now I'm stuck with these 2 German bows that I don't use anymore. I'm still more comfortable in French.
Yeah.
But so I'll grab a bass here. So should I do this?
Here you
This
go.
is my Zuzek. This would be the nicer, right? So I'm going, how low do I keep it? And I can't get it louder than that. And he grabs my bow and he just goes, it's like fist, takes it in his fist, like not proper technique of holding it.
Right,
and he
right.
his fist around, and he's like leaning into it, putting all this weight there.
Wow.
He's like, listen, if that conductor's like giving me dirty looks and waving his arms, he wants it louder, and my shoulder hurts and I can't press anymore. Who cares? It's just that kind of a thing, like that opened up my mind so much. I'm not saying like do that from now on when you have to play tremolo, but the idea that like, oh yeah, we get so caught up in all these precious things and everything has to be this way and this. But at the end of the day, if somebody wants to hear a certain sound from an instrument and you just get it, like Eddie Van Halen used to say, if it sounds good, it is good, right?
Yeah.
French, wow. We just answered that, but yeah. So I don't know. I would say the best thing I learned about it is to not get too caught up on having perfect technique. Just figure out what you need to do to get what is being asked of you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. Even if it means like you're sawing through a 2x4.
Yeah. You know, that's an extreme thing. That's one thing, but it could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I used to play with this singer in Philly, and his dad was a violinist in the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I used to talk to him. He would come to the gigs, and I'd say, "Man, bowing, it always like kicks my ass." And something that he said to me that made a lot of sense, and this would apply to anything, not just with the bow, but he said, "You have to hear the sound first in your ears, in your head, in your mind, and then just get the sound."
Okay.
You know, because I was always like, okay, the bow, it looks like it's in the right spot. I'm pulling it, but it sounds like crap. But it's kind of like, what are you trying to make it sound like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Great point. Interesting. Very cool. Man, and it's like I said, you know, an hour and 20 or not, we've been at it for an hour and 20, and it goes quick. Goes by real quick.
Don't leave me. I have nothing to do for this.
Well,
so I have to mix an album, actually. I have a lot to do.
We are going to cut it here pretty soon, but one last thing I want to touch on. You recently got a rocket bass combo amp. How's that working out for you?
Great. Oh man, because I remember reaching out to you and going like, dude, are you doing the lightweight thing? Because that's speaking of New York, you know.
Yeah.
That really applies. And I didn't know that you had done that, because there were the other rocket basses before, right?
Yeah, way back. Yeah.
And so I think I even looked online, but when I just saw that title, I was like, well, it's not that. Yeah. And then I checked in with you. It's I can't believe how light it is. It sounds great. I use it on upright and electric.
Which one? You have the 112 or 115?
The 12. The 12.
Yeah.
The 12, yeah. And then there was that thing, right? There was like, there's a 10 or an 8.
There's
both,
an 8, a 10, and a 12. Yeah.
Yeah, 12. But maybe I have the 10. Should I get it?
Sure.
Should I get it and check?
I'm just curious.
There was something that, like, one of the ones that is actually smaller weighs more than the bigger one.
Yes. The 108 weighs a little bit more than the 110. Different wood.
Oh, different wood. So I think I have the 10 then.
Okay.
I like the smaller footprint, but I was like, if I have to carry it, so I must have the 10. It's in my car. I can grab it.
One's like 21, one's 18 pounds or something like that.
I'm looking up. I'm looking up to see what we sent you now. Oh, did he go?
That Dan Electro bass.
If my guest can hold this with one hand, then you know it's light.
Looks like a 10.
Oh, that's a 110.
It's a 10. It is a 10.
It is a 110.
Right on.
Yeah, there we go. Cool.
And then I have the this thing, which is the coolest, cutest thing.
Oh yeah.
VR. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Little mini SVT.
Exactly.
Have you played upright through that?
Yeah. I have.
Yeah.
I love, I like the simplicity of the EQ. Like,
right.
We get into all the graphics and the 9-band and 12-band. Sometimes it's like, I mean, it is great if you actually have time to dial it in and the opportunity. But like something just like the OG SVT, right? It's like, give me the 3 knobs.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard to set that up. And I've been using the plug-in on these mixes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I used to use a different, sometimes, there's like the Sans amp one that comes with both. It always sounded fake to me. But so like this album that I'm mixing, we mic'd an actual B15.
Okay.
And then we took a DI, and I'm putting the DI through the SVT plugin and pushing it so you get, and then I end up just using the mic'd B15 as sort of like a way to kind of widen it. Yeah, because I'm pushing the gain on the SVT, so it's a little more focused and has a little grit to it. And then when I just want to make it a little rounder, it's almost like a low end EQ the actual B15.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
great. Yeah, I'm digging that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm glad you're getting some use out of that. That's a whole.
We got to make a New York edition of the rocket bass and put the hole in the middle for that wheel. Just put one wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, that man, it's a pain getting around with this stuff, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, that was, it's funny because I remember years and years ago when Rudy's was open, I would go into Rudy's and go up, the bass department was on the second floor.
Yeah.
And, they'd have an SVT and an 810 there. And I forget the guy's name. I think it was Paul that was managing the bass department of Rudy's. And I always asked him, I was like, dude, do you sell a lot of SVTs and 810s and like the guys specifically coming to New York to buy those?
Yeah.
He was like, that amp's been here. That amp was here before I get it. Like if it's not small and you can't pick it up with one hand, players in the city really don't want to deal with it because they can't deal with it.
No. If the gig needs an SVT, then you call cartage,
Right.
So there's cartage and there's rental, right? So it's two. Like cartage implies that I own it and somebody picks it up and takes it, or it's but rental stuff happens a lot still. There's Power Music SVT, SIR, although they're kind of in flux right now with the pandemic thing.
Okay.
They closed the one down. The other one on 52nd closed a long time ago, and now the one in the 20s closed. But I think they're moving.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think years ago, like when I started doing the Rod thing, I think Doc was like, "Oh, we got to set you up with an SVT for back home." I was like, "No."
I live in the third floor walk up.
Yes, I'm in the SVT fridge. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They had one of those at SIR.
Yep. I remember that. We still get requests to do those every now and then, and it's just nowadays to do it, it's just so impractical at this point. But you never know. We might. Dom's the guy to talk to. He's
don't tell anybody that.
Yeah. No.
I have a fridge.
It's funny. I keep on bugging Dom. It's like, dude, we gotta do an amplifier with just a volume knob on it. Just a volume knob. That's all.
That bass that's my fretless right there.
Yeah.
Is that a Rob Allen?
It's a Rob Allen.
Yep.
You know it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it just has, which I love and it's like, I shouldn't tell you this because I paid for it. Like, give me this, so I'm not going to pimp you.
That's a great bass, though.
Yeah, and I've had this for 20 years or 21 years, and I've never changed the strings. These are the strings that came with it.
Beautiful. Oh wow!
But, it just has a volume knob cut out of the same grid.
Yeah. Yep.
No tone controls. But yeah, and I've had this thing all over, beat the shit out of it, played with pick and everything, but it's
and those are the original strings on it.
Yeah. Cool. I bought it on set when I bought the bass, and they're still in the closet. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, that's all.
Wow, that's cool.
Man.
You hear it?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's got such a nice that.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. It's pretty even, like fretless slash Jaco sound slash.
Yeah, well, depending how it's all about that. Then.
Yeah.
That thing sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's hard to get both on a fretless, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I like that it just completely realized. So what I'm saying is, an amp with just a volume knob would rock.
That sounds killer. That sounds killer.
Yeah.
Wow. Is he still making those? Is Rob Allen still in business? Do you know?
I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I hope so.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And then that one there is the one I played with the Faces on their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
cool.
production.
Oh, that's right too. That's
Yeah,
right.
and the reunion. We did a reunion in England.
Okay.
And we did it. And then actually, I made this pick guard. I like went to Home Depot and got like plexiglass, made it clear because the original one was I can't get this. There we go. I'm working back.
Cool.
The original one was white, but I got the guys to sign it after the.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Gig. So I didn't want to play gigs on it and have the signatures
Right.
Yeah.
rub off like Ronnie Wood and Rod Stewart and Kenny Jones. I didn't get Mac because I did this after the reunion gig in London, which was after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and Mac had already passed away.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Man, Conrad, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hope you feel better, man. Hope you.
Thank you.
All up here from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's much better than the first time. That's for sure. So.
Yeah. That's oh man. That's like I said. I had it a few weeks ago, and it's not fun. Not that being sick anywhere is fun, but yeah, it's just like you say, all the unknowns. Especially you had it back in 2020 when there were a lot of unknowns about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oh, Haji. So Haji posted your artist page, and we'll also post about your other links on here too, if that's all right with you.
I have a website too, ConradKorsch.com. Should I post? Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Haji will post it. Haji's behind the scenes right now.
Okay.
Doing, posting stuff. But man, again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on again, definitely.
No way.
Yeah. No. Well, in fact, what are you doing tomorrow?
I had a terrible time. I'll never do this again.
And
I'm gonna get COVID. We'll put it in the books.
Well, I will say this. So obviously in the next 10 days, I won't be coming down to New York to see Beetlejuice because I know you won't be playing on it.
Next week at least.
Next week at least. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But
reach out. Right now, unfortunately, there's no backstage.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Because of the COVID stuff. But otherwise, I'd say come hang with me in the pit.
Yeah. But definitely, if you do get the call for SNL too, let us know and we'll post it on
social. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we could, I was gonna say, we could have Conrad back for Sweet Talk, since he's using the plugin.
Yeah. So we do something. Basically, it's this, but we talk about SVT Suite, the plugin, and how you use it, and if you have any special settings and stuff like that you prefer, because everybody has their own secret sauce in the SVT that they use.
Mine actually, it varies from song to song. I just keep that classic, like the one that when you open it, there's like the classic thing.
Yeah.
And then because I'm sort of blending it with the other thing, so it depends what else is happening in the song. Are there like 4 electric guitars and acoustic guitar, or is it just like an acoustic guitar? And how much do I need it to? But I crank the treble on it because I'm trying to get the gank from it. Yep. But then if it's too trebly, then I might switch the mic from the dynamic to I'll put like the Royer on it or something to sort of like smooth out some of the high end.
Everybody likes that Royer, Dom.
I know, man. I'm glad we left it in there.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great decision, man.
But it's right. How it's fitting into the mix with everything going around it. That's the thing. Like if you soloed it, you'd be like, "That's the bass sound you dialed in," But you have to hear if the guy's riding on the crash the whole time.
That's a good point.
What amazed me when I first started working at when I first came to LA, I was working for the Guitar Hero music or like the music department there, where it was like you're converting everything from these old classic songs, all the stems and sometimes multi-tracks into red, green, blue, whatever the heck the colors were, and sometimes vocal stuff. But anyways, the thing that fascinated me was like whenever I would get these, I think my first song was my first band I begged for it. It was So Lonely by the Police, and huge Sting fan, and just like had completely memorized every nuance of that song from the recording, like the whole mix concept. Then you start taking stuff away, like if you have the ability to do so, and it was like fascinating to me how terrible things sounded on their own.
Right?
But like, collectively together, they all work together. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's so easy to like get into that, but like years and years and years ago, I got like one of the early like digital multi-effect things that came out like for bass, and I was so psyched I was going to use it in my band, and I had like made all these patches like super compressed and all this chorus and all this shit. It was just like by itself, it was like, wow, man. And then like we had a rehearsal, I was like, you couldn't even hear the bass. Everything, it was so wet, and it was ridiculous. I returned it the next day. But one knob, Dino. One knob.
One knob.
Sometimes no knobs.
Isn't that your nickname? One knob, Dino.
One knob.
Can I show you something? Speaking of which, I know we got to go. I pulled this out. No pun intended. Because
where's this show going? Oh no!
Yeah, right.
The one we last time Conrad was on here.
You called me. I want to show you something. So I had one of my basses on tour with Rod was a 5-string Lakeland, and Rod does this thing that he's known for doing. He calls it knobbing, where he draws like in a Sharpie. He'll draw a penis on things. It could be anything. Nothing is off limits, right? He did it right away on my upright bass case.
Oh my god!
The flight case, right? So it's like Conrad Korsch, and then this big, right? And so every airport, like every venue.
Oh my god!
Fortunately, I wasn't the one carrying it. But so what people don't know is that for many years, the back of that 5-string bass, he had knobbed it. So I'm out playing it every night. And then finally I said, no, well, at least sign it, since you've already destroyed my bass, like make it, give me a good story. And then, so he signed it, and then he drew an arrow. So I'm going to show it to you.
All right.
We're gonna get out. This is gonna be a new T-shirt for
Erin's
gonna see these previews. She's gonna be like, "What were you guys talking about?"
So this is the bass.
Beautiful bass, by the way. Beautiful.
Yeah, the Joe Osborne.
Nice.
It's amazing.
But 5-string version.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then the back of it is. Oh wait.
I got it.
Oh my god.
And like, I can't do this because I'm working it. So he has it there. He signed it, and then he put 'S knob and drew the arrow.
Man, that'll be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one day.
No, I'm just out. Some guys have all in love. Yeah. So I actually tacked over it so that it wouldn't rub off.
That's hilarious.
That is too much, man.
Rub off.
Yeah, I know. It's all the puns right now.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Anyway, there. Consider that the prequel to my Christie's auction.
We gotta leave it at
where
that.
do you go from there?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're just gonna leave it right there. Hey everyone, thanks again for watching, man. Yeah, as always, it's always a pleasure being able to do this and having everybody watch and join in. And always remember, Tuesdays. Right now it's every Tuesday. I don't have anybody scheduled for the next SVT time because, with June and vacations and everything coming up, and quite frankly, a lot of people are out on tour right now too. So people are just kind of.
And after this interview, you'll probably get canceled.
No, actually, they're gonna
ratings are way up.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody have a safe week. Thank you for watching, and like I always say, play more bass, and we'll see you guys at the next episode. Cool.